Hey everyone, my name is Faizan, and as usual, I'm here with Texas Peck, and this is another episode of the Energy Corner.
Yeah.
And this podcast is really about for us using our energy, our thoughts, and
Everything.
feelings to be able to kind of get to know ourselves a little
Yeah.
bit better. So. Last episode, we were kind of talking about showing up,
Yeah.
and where we left off was this thing about being a participation sport,
Yeah.
right? Where you actually have to show up and practice.
Yeah.
So you want to,
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of talk around consciousness right now.
Yeah.
Like it's everywhere because people are they're struggling and they're hurting and they're searching, and that's a really great conversation.
yeah. And I think they're struggling, if I may. It's like there's this feeling that there's got to be more.
Yeah.
There's got to be more to this
Experience.
life, this
Yeah.
experience, this
Yeah.
world. What we were taught, striving and working and achieving something. It's like it's left a lot of people kind of hollow,
Yeah.
a
That's
shell
the
of
word.
themselves.
Yeah. I think that's the word I hear a lot. With the one-on-one work I do, I have people coming in and they're going, like, I kind of got there, but there was nothing there.
Yeah, Yeah.
I'm not suffering,
Right.
like physically,
Yeah.
but there's something inside of me that's saying, hey, there's got to be a bit more,
Right.
There's got to be something else, and I think Monique talks a lot about this in the stuff that she teaches, is that there is more. Like we have a knowing that there's more, and I like to say that we are a spiritual being having a physical experience, not the other way around, and that's really being thrown out there a lot.
Yeah,
But I think that when you really look at that, it's a pretty big question. Yeah.
So here's I think in the last episode I said I'd share a little bit of a personal anecdote.
That'd be beautiful.
And one of the things I'm struggling out, because a lot of these terms, these spiritual, psychological terms are being used, and they're being used in service of the old. So let me kind of give you a little bit of an example. It's like, so you see like car commercials, and they're like really pulling at your heartstrings.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, the adventure is waiting out there, and you can be authentic and all of those things. And it's like, so I have to buy a car so I can go out there and be something, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things in the last episode we were talking about was that there's a lot of, like, we've got access to books. We've got access to a lot of YouTube videos, and this might be just another one in your arsenal as well. Is like there's a lot of information out there.
I think that's the right word. There's a lot of information.
A lot of information. And, for many years, I really, really, really fed my mind a lot of the information, because it was there was I don't want to use the word addiction, but there was this need for more and more information. So I was just literally sucking up books.
Yeah.
Right? Like the information that's in the books, and like, oh, maybe I'll try this theory, I'll try that theory, and I'll learn about this philosophy, and learning a lot, and thinking I'm actually progressing in my spiritual growth, in my personal growth, in my consciousness.
Yeah.
And maybe there was an aspect of it, so because at least I knew where I was faltering, but I was still avoiding looking at some of my dark parts. And it all came to a head when, and I'm sharing this because Syra shares her story,
Right.
Being married to her, where she kind of went through this deep depressive episode. Like, I mean, it was so deep, like I'd be at work, knowing I have to go pick up the kids afterwards, and not being really sure if those kids are going to have their mother or not.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and in all of that, obviously she was going through that. I wasn't really helpful in that that particular piece with her, because what came up for me was, oh, this is something I can't fix, right? And for many years, I struggled with belonging, right? Like, do I belong in my family? Do I belong here? And to find a partner who's willing to look past some of the flaws and be like, okay, I love you.
Right.
We belong together. You belong here.
Right.
And to having
Potentially lose that.
having the potential of possibly losing that, and not knowing how to actually deal with it, having read all the books, all the videos, the process that needed to be done, I knew what needed to be done. The thoughts that needed to change, all of those things, but I just couldn't do it.
Right.
Because I actually needed to get, it's like it wasn't Sarah's job to fix that part of me that does not feel like it belongs.
Yeah.
That does not feel worthy of love.
Nobody can do that for you.
Right. But I had to now, I'm like, oh, whatever happens to her, I'm going to have to deal with this part.
Yeah.
Whether she continues in this life or not. Like, and obviously she's still around and she's doing wonderful things now. But, even in midst of it, she was doing wonderful things. Right. But we were both kind of in this struggle, and where it's like, oh, I have to go look at this part. I can't distract myself with what's going on with her.
So what would you say could be a potential, for people who are listening? Like,
No,
distraction can be all kinds of things.
Well,
right?
yeah, exactly. So for me, it was like, oh, I gotta provide for the family. Okay, that was kind of being taken care of. Now I gotta fix my wife.
No, you can't.
And the problem was I couldn't.
Right.
Right. So I was looking for that distraction where I didn't have to look at that part of me.
Right.
So I started then looking at those parts of me, where it's like, oh, that little boy who's never felt part of something.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to go look at that.
Yeah.
I have to go look at it.
Yeah.
Nobody, and there was no book. There were a lot of books that talked about how to do it.
Yeah. But your personal journey is your personal
But
journey.
nobody had to, like, nobody else, the book couldn't do it for me.
No.
And the mind couldn't do it for me.
There's the key right there, right?
Yeah, and so we were kind of sharing. The reason for me sharing this anecdote was about, okay, we have to show up.
So that's step one.
We have to participate.
Yeah.
But the other piece was the mind that I was using to fix this no longer was serving it.
Yeah.
I had to learn that. And this is something you talk about, so I wanted you to see if you could kind of go a little bit deeper. Is this that the mind that has created the problem cannot solve the problem?
Yeah, and I think it's really, and I'm not trying to be controversial with this, but it's a really strong belief with me is that there's a lot of, actually it's your term, spiritual pornography. Like where we get really busy. The mind loves a problem to solve. Yeah. It loves a problem, and so a lot of this is us trying to do something spiritual with the unspiritual part of us.
Yeah,
like the mind is not where we connect to the higher source of energy.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a different operating system. They can talk, right? But one is not.
No, and to kind of extend that term, like the reason I use spiritual pornography is because it's just like, watching porn. It's just like, for me, it's just like watching all of these videos that are inspiring and all of those things. It's like learning a new meditation style. And well, hell, I learned it.
Yeah.
But am I going to wake up and do the meditation or not?
Yeah, and you're going to do it or whatever that is because we're going to hit that resistance piece, right?
Yeah.
So for me in my journey, I find just my thing, less is more.
Yeah.
Right? Because I need to spend time being quiet with me. Because that's where I'm going to find the solution. Right? I'm going to go in. And I don't really need anything to do that. People have been doing that for thousands of years. They were people who, so if we look at the opposite of that, we say, well, if you can't read, then you can't be spiritual.
Right.
If you can't be in a community, that you can't be spiritual. You can't find connectedness. But if we look at what history teaches us, some of our greatest consciousness teachers, they didn't have the access to the internet.
Yeah.
How did they could do it? Right. So for me, it's something I learned really early on in in my journey was this ability of being able to get in touch with my higher self, and that's here. It's not here. Mm-hmm. And I had a good teacher around that, and he also taught me that in that place there's this part of us that the intuitive mind, right? And the intuitive mind's I believe the only interest that it has, right, is to help us to see who we really are. Mm. So it's going to take us through a series of whatever that is, comfortable, uncomfortable, to say, hey, this is who you are.
Yeah.
Right? This is who you really are. This is who you really are if you didn't have the fear. This is who you really are if you didn't have the guilt. This is who you really are if you didn't have the shame. And it in our life then looks a lot. It can look a lot like anybody else's life on the outside.
Yeah.
But how we're interpreting that life is different because our lens is different, right? So in my I don't do it perfectly, but my heart is to go, okay, in this moment, what am I supposed to be? Mm. Who am I supposed to be? Right? Yeah. And it might surprise a lot of people if they got there how unfantastic being conscious is. There's fantastic pieces, to this consciousness journey, but every morning's not Christmas morning. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my intuitive self just tells me, "Hey, dude, you need to go this way on the road," and I go, "Oh, right," and I go, and I don't go why,
right?
I make that turn, right, and so it becomes that following, and as we do that more and more and more, we get more conscious of how unconscious we were. Does that make sense? Yeah. Right. So I don't know if that helps, but that.
Well, it does, and I think if anything, right, what I hope people are getting, what I hope I'm getting, is how much of our life is lived in this unconscious state.
Yeah, so much.
Even while we feel like we're progressing, so much of our life is kind of run through these automatic programmings that we've got. Right. I'm not thinking about breathing.
But it's happening.
But the breath is coming in and out. Mm-hmm. Now, it might not be as deep and conscious as I want it to be. So that's something that I'm like, okay, if I'm going to bring presence to it right now, I can maybe have a little bit of a deeper breath. Right. But the body continues functioning. We're made of billions and trillions of cells that are functioning and
without any conscious, without us having to think about it.
Right. Yeah. Now, they might be acting out some old programming based on fear, based on anxieties, based on joy as well, possibly. Yeah. But there's these old programming that the body is kind of continuing to play out and the mind is continuing to play out. And I think what we're saying is that there's another
option.
Yeah, there's another option to say, and the connection is not to say that we don't want to use the mind.
No.
Right?
No, not at all.
It's to say that there are other systems, there are other energy systems that we might not be aware of, that we have access to.
Yeah, and maybe the mind is a really good it's a good partner, but maybe not a great boss.
Yeah.
Right?
It's to be able to use what it needs to, like in this moment, right? Like so when we say getting heart-centered, we're literally we're not talking about the heart organ, right? But we're talking about that there's another energy system that we can access that has even a deeper connection, right? Like Monique in her Foundations in Consciousness course, which again we'll link to in the video if you want to take it, is like she talks about how the heart, the energetic field of the heart is greater than the energetic centering or the kind of the energy centers of the brain,
and that there's more communication from the heart to the brain than from the brain to the heart. But we've kind of lived under this illusion, and even
the other way,
and we've kind of poo-pooed. It's like, well, where's the logic in following your heart?
Yeah, because with the again, not getting all controversial here, but living out of the heart is more difficult to control. So if my kids are living out of their heart,
Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not going through 7 years of university.
Right?
Maybe they're going to become a painter, or you know, or like
or they'll go through university and they'll be like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And then we're struggling
Right.
to meet their needs
Right.
because and it's more difficult to control them with things like guilt and shame and all of those things.
As well.
Whether we like it or not,
Right.
I feel like I'm doing a lot of conscious parenting.
Right.
Even then, I'm.
Oh yeah.
I find myself guilting them and shaming, and it's like, okay, I catch myself. I do the repair work.
You're doing a more conscious job than what you maybe have done.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Right. But it doesn't mean that we're done. And I think that's where we bail sometimes.
Well, that's it.
Right. It's like, if I can't get this right.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really about that.
Well, and then even when I'm talking, like, kind of going down that example, right? Like, the kids are mine. Mm-hmm. The words I'm using, my kids.
Mm-hmm. They're not.
When they're right, like, and so it's like they're sovereign beings as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I allowed them to use their heart, I allow them to use their heart.
Yeah.
Right. Like, even there, like, there's this control, the sense of like, well, use it this much, don't use it this much.
Yeah. Like, don't be crazy.
Right. Because and so historically.
Right.
Historically, these intuitive connections, feelings, knowings have been shut down.
Yeah.
And to stay safe, physically safe.
Yep.
Right. And so for us now to relearn that there are these other communication methodologies that are available to us.
Right. And we're not just relearning it for. Well, like, we're talking about generations of this being not cool.
Yeah.
Right. And we talk a bit about this being in fight and flight a lot.
Yeah.
It's a great skill. Like, I forget who I was reading who said, if a leopard's chasing you, don't sit down and meditate.
No.
Use your fight and flight and get up the tree.
Yeah.
But after and the leopard's gone and you're able to come down by the stream and relax. Right. Now can you shut that off?
Yeah. And Sarah, when she's talking about burnout and all of these things, there's a thing that she talks about is this stress cycle piece. And really the gist of it is that kind of the early man had these stresses, got to run, but then at some point they calmed down, right? They ran far away from the danger. Okay, now I can calm down. I think our current lifestyle, we never shut off. We never shut off that stress, and it might not be we're not running away from.
Actually, we have less danger now.
Yeah, we have less danger. Like, we're not running away from a tiger all the time, but we have these continuous, like, it's like a drip of stress that's coming into our bodies, it's coming into our brains, it's into our system that keep us in this fight or flight.
Yeah. And like we were talking about that, so the guy that's running away from the attack, he's going to go back, and then they're going to sit in a circle, and they're going to look at the heavens, right? Ponder their their consciousness, look at the fire, right? We don't even allow ourselves that, right?
We never shut off, right?
Well, and if we are, maybe I should be doing something.
Right.
I mean, I might be sitting here in a meditation. We do meditations. You can join them. Yeah. But the biggest thing for me when I started meditating was, but I'm not doing anything.
Right.
It's just like, well, what's supposed to happen?
Well, yeah, it's like this is taking an hour. I should.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to have a blank mind. I don't have a blank mind. Oh my God, I don't have. But my dad was. I was really fortunate. I got to grow up in the bush. And my dad was this really.
When he says a bush, literal.
We'll do a whole thing on that. But he had this ability to kind of be really present.
Yeah.
Right, and that's probably a good thing for us to jump into maybe next time. Is how do we enter that?
Well, yeah,
place, right.
You're right. I think we've laid out the problem, and I think that's good. I think the other side is to recognize the problem, right? Like, so we'll talk about being present in the next episode, but. How do we, like, what's the first step? What's the first step?
Is recognizing you're not present, right? And seeing if you, I had a first-time client here just the other day, and you start kind of the same way. just recognizing that my thoughts are never in the present moment. And just even journaling about that, like, oh, I'm thinking about this, but that's a memory from the past. And I'm taking that and I'm thinking, I lost another job.
Yeah.
That's already happened.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm probably going to lose my next job.
Yeah.
That's that forecasting. And I'm stuck in that world of past and future.
Yeah.
And we're the only sentient being that doesn't spend very much time in the only place we actually are.
Right.
Right? And that gateway, that key is the only access point to consciousness.
Yeah.
That's
it. Like taking inventory.
Yeah, taking inventory.
Taking inventory of where I am right now.
Right.
And
honest inventory.
But like, I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
Like I'm catching myself because there's a thought of like, well, I got to go do that in about an hour. Well, I got to be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Not being present here, right? Like, so there's this, it's not that we struggle, but there's this work that needs to be done to constantly just be taking inventory. And it can feel overwhelming.
It certainly,
right? Especially in the beginning.
Yeah, especially in the beginning. I talk about that 51%. When you're in that consciousness or flow state more than you're not, then the other place feels weird.
Yeah.
But when we start, Eckhart totally talks about this. Your first foray into consciousness may be for a second.
Yeah.
But I love what but I did something absolutely brand new.
Yeah.
And we need to celebrate that. It's like, wow, all of a sudden I lost track of, and it was there. And that entrance point, and this is another, it's hard for me to break these into small pieces, right? Yeah. But that entrance point into that consciousness stream, there's no time there.
Yeah.
So this is a very linear. It wants to know how much I can get done in an hour, how much I can get done in a day. In that other place where we heal, that's a place that's free of time. So if you were able to drop into that consciousness point for a second, how long were you really there? And I love that piece because it just speaks of possibility.
Yeah. Well, I think in the beginning, the real difficult part, at least I know it has been for me, is I'm trying to make sense of this new world, this new thing that I'm feeling and accessing, and trying to make it mean something here.
Yeah.
Right? Trying to fit into...
Trying to grab the bigger concept, the 5-dimensional concept, and pull it into the 3D.
Yeah, there's these like language.
Right.
Language starts failing because it's like, I could try to explain it.
Yeah.
Right?
It has to be experienced.
Yeah, but like there's these things that have been like, I'm like, okay, I need to do.
Right.
I can't tell you why I need to do it because there's no,
right.
I can't describe where this sense of duty, sense of work, all of this is coming from.
Right.
Because I can't explain it. And so it's like, but a lot of us then get lost in that struggle. Well, I can't explain it. I must be.
Right.
Like there must be something wrong.
Well, there's something wrong with me.
Right.
This ain't going to work for me.
Yeah. And I'm trying to make this world that I'm experiencing work. Right. Like, so it's like, it's like if I have this energy or if I'm being asked to do something, I'm going to get something here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so the in the beginning, the struggle is to actually take inventory and staying in that moment, staying present with those thoughts, the new way and the old way, all of it at the same time.
Yeah, it's a
until it blends.
Yeah, and it's a big jump in, right?
Yeah.
But I really feel that at this time in humanity's journey, we're there. I see it every day. People are coming in and going. I literally have this happen pretty much every day. Somebody comes in and goes, I don't care what it costs. I need to stop this.
Yeah.
I need to stop this crazy train.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, okay. And then you say, it's going to come a way you don't think. And they go, I think I know how it's coming. No. Never know how it's coming.
No.
Right.
I mean, we'll talk about how to kind of again, the solution is being present. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, let's be present in this moment.
But it's predictable. We have a way to predictably come back to
it. I mean, we will talk about the presence piece, but at some point we have to get okay with both not being normal. Right. Because, like this old world used to feel good, and now it's no longer serving me. Yeah. So I go and search, and I go find something, and it feels good. Not just good. It feels like it's feeding the soul. Yeah. But it's not feeding the body anymore. Yeah. So it's not feeding the mind anymore. Right. And so in both, and you're trying to survive in both worlds. Yeah. And at some point, right, like the fear is, well, one has to go. Yeah. Right. And again, what we're trying to say is that all of these thoughts are coming from the same mind that has created the original problem. Right. Right. The original problem was created by the mind based in fear. Yeah. And it's going to take whatever is feeling good and say, okay, I'll just use that now to have fear there. Yeah. So now it's like, this isn't going to feed my family. Yeah. This isn't going to, make
I'm
me
not going to fit in
belong
with my old friends, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. My friends are not going to be like, who's this crazy guy now, right? Like all of those things, right. Like those thoughts start kind of pouring in. And what we're saying is like, that's also part of the process.
And that's why we started this expansion project. Yeah. So people who are searching could find a place to express what they know and express what they don't know and express that, so that with other folks who are searching. Yeah.
Right, and being like when we're talking about being present, we're saying be present even with those thoughts.
Oh, absolutely, you have to be in it.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people, why kind of tying the last episode to this one, why people don't want to show up is like, well, there must be something wrong with me if I'm feeling this way, if I'm feeling fear in this new way of doing things. No, that's just your mind,
right? Trying to pull you back to the old familiar.
Exactly, and part of it is like staying with it, staying true to it. And so as we end this episode, like I said, we'll share some resources. The Foundations course is being worked on by Monique. Wonderful course. We'll share some of that information. But what we're going to ask you is to stay. Yeah. Stay present. Stay here. Be okay with not being okay.
And that's part of the reason we do this in a really kind of ad hoc way is we don't want to be the people who say, here's how you do this.
Yeah. Like even when we walk you through certain protocols or whatnot, that's not the key.
No. Right? And if I walk 3 people through a certain protocol, every one of them is going to experience it differently.
Exactly. And it's like, for us, it's like practicing and saying, okay, what is it bringing up for me right now? Right? Like, so those fears that I thought I'd gotten rid of, like, why is it showing up here? Okay, now let me look at it. Let me use it. And so what we're going to ask is be present. Yeah. And like Texas said, this is a participation sport. Yeah. So you're going to have to actually get in to your own arena and start looking at all of these thoughts by taking inventory first to say, why am I thinking about my childhood?
Yeah, what does what happened when I was in grade 6 have to do with this new job? Yeah. And if you can't answer the question, then you got to go a little deeper.
Yeah, and it's okay. Yeah, and that's okay. And so part of it is being okay with doing the work, being okay with participating and showing up for this sport. Yeah. Because it's not something you can journal out of you. Journaling will be the process, but it'll have to be through you. All of these things have to move through you. Yeah. And so,
maybe next time we'll talk a little bit maybe about what it is to be in the present moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what energy comes when you're in the present moment. Maybe we'll come back to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you again. Follow us, theexpansionproject.com. If you want to learn more about us, follow us on social media, like subscribe to the videos. I don't know what the cool kids say, but do something.
You don't know?
I have never been accused of being cool in my life, so I'll just. But we'll end it here,
Yeah.
and we'll see you
everybody.
next time.
Thanks, everybody.